Good morning, guys. We're going to get started here. For today's practice, all we'll need is either a blanket or I'm using a bath towel today. And you'll notice I also have a strap, a belt, a pair of spare yoga pants will also work. So what we're going to do is we're going to start standing. And what I'd like you to do is take your feet wider than your hips, toes point forward, and grab a hold of your strap or your belt. And you're going to just unroll that strap or belt and take it down in front of your hips. Grip with the palms facing towards your pelvis. And here, press down into the soles of your feet, maybe just kind of wiggle your hips a little bit. And as you pull that strap toward your hips, just drop your shoulder blades down your back, lift your chest just a little bit. So I'm actively pulling my hands apart. Take a couple of deep breaths here. And then once you've taken a couple of deep breaths, what I'd like you to do is on your next inhale, just start to lift those arms, keeping that tension on that belt or that strap or those yoga pants. And just take those arms up and overhead. Reach up towards the sky. Let your ribs flare out. Take a deep breath at the top. And then exhale. And back down towards your hips. So we're just going to kind of wake up the shoulders, wake up the upper back. Just inhaling to reach up. And exhaling to move those hands back down towards your pelvis. If you'd like, take a soft bend in your knees. Just start to kind of maybe invite a little movement down into the lower body, maybe bending into one knee and then bending very slightly into the other as you move your arms up and down along the front line of your body. And again, actively pulling out on that strap. So right now I'm moving my knees just slightly, letting my knees move forward over the center of my foot, not out to the side so much, but just a little bit of bend and straighten in those knees. And we'll do two more. And just making sure that you're pressing evenly down into your feet. And then go ahead and release that strap. And just take your hands with that strap in your hands behind your back, and you're just going to keep those palms facing back away from you and just pull out towards the short edges of your mat. So opening through the chest, lifting the heart, maybe dragging the backs of the hands down towards your pelvis, letting your back arch, letting your chin lift. Take a deep breath and let it go. And then go ahead and release. And we can go ahead and place that strap down on the floor, either off the mat or right near the mat. And what I'd like you to do is now bend your knees deeply and take your arms up overhead and then straighten. And then as you exhale, just bend your knees deeply. Inhale to reach up, reach out, maybe gaze up. Exhale into a little squat. Inhale to reach up. Just kind of welcoming the day, welcoming the morning. Really taking nice deep breaths here, breathing down into the belly. And we'll do two more of those. So inhale to reach. And exhale. Come back down. Last time. Inhale to reach. Exhale. Let it go. And then go ahead, straighten your legs. I'm going to take our hands to our hips. Draw the elbows back in space. Open through the heart. And just start to fold your chest forward. Maybe just slowly bending into left and right knees, shifting your hips as you move your chest more towards the floor. Making sure you're breathing all the way down. And then maybe taking your hands to the mat, continuing that fluid movement in your knees. Maybe taking that blanket or towel underneath the hands, If it feels like the floor is too far away, let your head reach towards the mat and just feel a little bit of energetic flow from the soles of your feet up the insides of your legs into your low back and then pouring out through your spine down onto the floor. Take a couple of breaths and really let that breath expand into the backs of the ribs, back of the heart. Continue to bend and straighten each knee individually. This is a nice, really fluid kind of movement. And then here, take a inhale and halfway lift. Maybe press your palms into the mat and just start to slide your hips forward and back. So like you're drawing a line with your heart from one edge of your mat to the other. Just rocking forward. Now my knees are straight here. If you want to take a little bend, you can do that and just move your heart forward and back. It's a little bit of a different move. I'm looking to feel the sensation into the backs of my hamstrings here. Take a few breaths, maybe sigh it out. Maybe close your eyes. And once you've taken a couple of those forward and back rocks, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and take your hands back to your hips, elbows drawing back in space, press down into all four corners of your feet, and slowly, slowly, slowly letting your head, shoulders, and neck come up last. Come back up to stand. Let your shoulder blades drop down your back. See if you can expand the space between the base of your earlobes and the tops of your shoulders. Take a couple of breaths. Maybe drop your right ear towards your right shoulder, and then drop your left ear towards your left. Do that one more time on each side. Let your breath fill your lungs, fill your rib cage. And then come back to center. We're going to just walk our feet back in underneath our pelvis a little bit more. So this time only slightly wider than your hips. Your heels will be outside the points of your pelvis. Rotate your feet so you're duck-footed here. And if you moved that blanket or that towel into front of you, move it back so it's in between your feet towards behind you so that when we come down to sit, your tailbone will come to rest on that blanket or towel. And here, again, make sure your toes are turned out. And all you're going to do is start to squat down. And if you need to make any kind of adjustment as you come down, so this is as far as I'm going today, I'm going to just hang out here for a second. I'm going to let my elbows press against the insides of my knees and just start to open up the hips a little bit. If we sit a lot, if we've been on an airplane for a while today or yesterday or this week as travel comes back, this can feel really good. And then from here, you can take your hands down and come down any way you like to sit. Right down on that bolster, or if you have like me, a towel or a blanket. And now that we're down on the ground, what I'd like you to do is just find a comfortable seat. If you need to adjust where that blanket is underneath your pelvis, if you need to make any adjustments here, go ahead and just do that. And what I'd like you to do is start to take your hands to your thighs and just start to feel the sensation of your pants against your hands. Just doing a little like, oh, okay, here we are. We've arrived. And as you slowly begin to get into this rocking motion, allowing your chest to move forward and back, allowing a little bit of rocking forward and back on your pelvis, start to just imagine moving your energy down from the backs of your shoulders down into the rib cage, down into your pelvis. And almost like you're rocking a bowl of water from front to back. Just start to allow that pelvis to rock forward and back like you're spilling water out through the front and then out through the back. Just a really simple rocking movement here. And as you rock forward and back, maybe get your head and neck involved. So letting the heart lead back, letting the heart lead forward, opening the throat. So almost taking it into this seated cat-cow kind of shape, but letting your hands continue to slide on your legs. And I'm really liking the inhaling back and exhaling forward. Let's just be really fluid with our movements today. Just be really gentle, really easy with them. Allow everything to kind of move. And then just come back to stillness. And we're going to come into just a nice, soft sort of deer pose. If you don't like the blanket that you're sitting on, or if it's too high, you can scooch that out off to the side. We're just going to come into a deer pose. So that means you're going to take your right knee, you're going to bend it in towards the midline. Your left foot, you're going to fold back towards your left hip. And I'm going to go ahead and take that right hand off to the side. Take your left hand to your hip. And for a moment here, just kind of rotate your chest out towards that left knee. Let the elbow and shoulder drop back. Maybe gaze back over that left shoulder. Kind of let gravity just sink. Do a little work here. And then we're just going to start to rotate that hip forward and back. So you can take your hand to that hip and just start to twist the shoulders towards the mat and then open towards the other end. So you're just rotating towards the right and then rotating towards the left, opening your eyes, letting them gaze around the room. Just allowing everything to kind of move here. Take your hand to your rib cage and just rotate forward and back. Again, kind of using your hand as a method of helping those ribs rotate around. And then go ahead and, if you've been with me for a while, you know this move, but take your fingertips to your shoulder and then reach forward. So fingertips to shoulder, gaze back, and then reach forward. And you can breathe however you like here. I'm really liking kind of the deep breath this twisting movement encourages. So I'm going with it today. And you can move or breathe in any way you want. We'll do two more. Before landing that left hand next to the right, maybe walk your right hand out a little bit more, twist through that midline, press down into the inside line of that left inner knee. Lift your heart. Maybe slide your shoulder blades down your back. Take a couple of breaths. And then from here, go ahead and come down onto your elbows. Just a little twisted, low down lizard here. If you'd like to kind of rock your heart space between your elbows, feel free to do that. And then walk your hands back underneath your shoulders and come back to center. If this is comfortable, if this is a nice place for you to be, feel free to stay here. If you'd like to get that towel or blanket underneath your left hip, feel free to also do that. I'm going to actually take my feet in a little bit closer to my body. So I've moved my left foot in more towards my hip. I've moved my right foot in more towards my groin. And you'll notice my pelvis is uneven. That's totally okay, but I'm going to take my hands back to my thighs. I'm just going to start to do a little half moon rock. And my half moon rock is going to be a little bit more restricted because I'm not going to be able to move all the way over to my left side because of where my pelvis and my femur bone actually meet. So here, really, the rocking is more oriented towards the right side of the body. And I'm just rocking back and forth, allowing my eyes to kind of skim along the baseboard of my space. Taking a moment to just take it all in. Take a nice deep breath. And let everything just settle out. And just continue to move and breathe however feels good. We're going to be here for a few more breaths, just letting all of this stuff settle. And then from here, go ahead and come back to center, and you're going to just switch sides. So however you'd like to get there, feel free to go ahead and make that transition. Just making sure we're recording here. So you're going to come down so that your left foot is in front and drawing in towards your midline, and then your right foot is back behind you. Once again, if you feel uncomfortable with how much your right hip is floating off the mat, I'm much tighter on my right side, you may want to just slide that towel or that blanket underneath. And then from here, take your left hand out to the side. You can rest that right hand on the back of your hip. Let your chest open up, really sink into that left arm. Kind of like you're just hanging out. Maybe let the back of your head drop. And take a breath. And then here we'll start to move. So you're just going to start to move that hip forward and back using the help of your right hand. So pressing into the back of the pelvis, letting the chest rotate around. Just allowing everything to kind of move and twist. And then take your hand up to your rib cage and start to move that rib cage around. You can close your eyes if that feels good. You can keep your eyes open if you like, allowing the light of the morning and the light of the day to come in. I went and visited my aunt a few weeks ago, and she reminded me of kind of a great mantra of breathe in sunshine, breathe out stress. So if that feels like something that connects with you right now, feel free to take that on. And then take your fingertips to your right shoulder, and you're going to open that right shoulder back to the right, and then reach those fingertips out over to the left. So rotating the chest, keeping those legs where they are, breathing however you'd like. Just allowing the movement to come in as you breathe. We'll do two more, just letting all that kind of settle in, open up. And then go ahead and lower that right hand back down to the next to the left. And here, press down into the palms, press down into the inside of that right knee. Lift your heart, maybe lift the back of your head. Take a few deep breaths here, just noticing how that breath massages the internal organs, massages inside. And then go ahead and come down to your elbows, a little lowered lizard move here. And maybe here, release the crown of your head towards the earth. See if you can really breathe into the back body, breathe into the back of the heart. Let those shoulders separate and slide around the rib cage. And then once you've taken a few moments, go ahead and walk your hands back underneath your shoulders and start to come back up to sit. And once again, I'm going to adjust my seating position. For this side, I feel like I need the support of the towel underneath my right hip. So I'm going to go ahead and make that adjustment. If you feel like you need that, feel free to take whatever modification you need. And then here, we're just going to do that same rocking movement. Again, more aimed towards the left side of our mat. So you're just going to rock. Chest comes forward and then back. Just kind of tracing this heart space, right? Tracing out, like you're carving out space for your feelings, for your emotions, for whatever's coming up in your heart space right now. Just allow that rocking to settle the system. Allow your eyes to gaze around the room. Maybe open them nice and wide just to take in your space. And we'll do 2 more of those. And then just gently come back up to center. If you've got, like me, that blanket underneath your hip, you can just place it off to the side. Come back to a nice, easy seated position, whatever that looks like. And if you need to sort of scooch around or you do want to sit on that blanket or that towel, feel free to. And here, what I'd like you to do is I'm going to keep my left foot in front. My right foot is closer to my body. Go ahead and take your hands both out in front of you. Palms face down, press down into the earth, and drag the heels of your hands back towards your shins. This is a nice hip opener here. So if you'd like, you can just kind of rock your chest left and right. And if this feels good, if you want to go a little further, you can always walk down to your elbows. But this is going to depend on how sort of open and flexible your hips are feeling right now. And for me, I'm going to actually individually lift one elbow and then lift the other and kind of twist here. Just letting my body, especially my upper body, kind of rock back and forth. So it's like I'm dipping my left shoulder towards my left knee and then my right shoulder towards my right. And again, if you're up, that can just be as simple as shifting weight from one hand to the other. And then go ahead and walk your fingertips back in. So you come back up to seat, and you're going to just switch the cross of your legs. So right foot comes in front, left foot comes closer. If this becomes too much on the knees, definitely sit up on the blanket or the towel today. And then take your hands out in front of you. Press down into the palms. Drag the heels of your hands towards your shin. Take a deep breath here. Really drag those shoulder blades down the back. And then if you'd like, you can start to do that rocking motion. So if it's a left and right on the palms, that's great. If you've decided to go a little bit further and want to come down to the elbows, and if the elbows seem like they're too far, but you do want to go forward and you're not using your blanket or your towel to sit on, you can always use that blanket or towel as a place sort of in between. Place that towel or blanket underneath your elbows. And here, just make sure that you're rocking back and forth. So a little bit of a twist here. I'm letting one elbow drop and then the other. And I'm letting my gaze follow the movement. So as I lift my left elbow, I'm turning towards the left. As I lift my right elbow, I'm turning towards the right. So really kind of getting into those outer hip muscles, those big glutes that help us move through our day. And then go ahead and walk your hands back in towards your center line. And we're going to come around onto all fours. If you'd like to pad your knees with your towel or your blanket, feel free to do that. I'm actually going to take that option today. So I'm going to place my towel at the middle of my mat. And I don't need a lot of padding, but I want some. And then we're going to do a little bit of feet work here. So this is, not going to lie, this is not a fun, this is not a fun pose, but it will make your feet and legs feel a little better. So we're going to start with stretching out the soles of our feet. So tuck your toes so that all 5 toes on each foot come to rest directly down on the mat. Take your hands underneath your shoulders. And then from here, you're just going to sink really simply your pelvis back towards your heels. You can come up on fingertips here if you like. So my fingertips are right in front of my knees. And I'm stretching through the backs, the soles of my feet. And here, this is a nice stretch for me, so I'm going to kind of hang out here, and I'm going to rock forward and back, just moving my pelvis up and down, almost like I'm kind of bouncing, just rocking. And then once that feels like okay, I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm going to take my fingertips back closer to my knees, maybe walk my hands onto my thighs, maybe try to bring myself up to a vertical position where my shoulders are stacked over my pelvis. Now this is really intense, not gonna lie, but I'm trying to find some softness and some ease. I'm gonna take 2 more breaths. So here's 1. And here's 2. And then go ahead and come forward. Take your hands back down to the mat. You're gonna uncurl those toes, maybe point and flex those feet. And then just let the tops of the feet come down to rest on the mat. And if you'd like, you can walk your hips back so that your pelvis restacks on top of your heels and coming into a nice, easy seated position. I apparently have food on the brain this morning. Got lots of sleep, but feel like super tired. Ever have that? So not completely firing on all cylinders, but that's okay. And here, what I'd like you to do is just shift your weight from left to right. Nice and fluid. Just kind of flowing with what's going on, flowing with the energy that we've got this morning. If you'd like to take your hands to your belly, one hand to your chest, maybe close your eyes. Just rock back and forth. Feeling that flow of energy. And then once you've taken a moment here, we're going to do a little bit of calf work. So you're going to come back forward into that all fours position. And if you've been sitting on an airplane, you know that a lot of times, even if we sit a lot, you get a lot of pooling of blood into the lower legs. So we're going to do a little thing here to kind of get some blood moving. And then we'll move at the end of practice into a more restorative position. So go ahead and ground down into the left knee. And you're going to just cross that right shin across that kind of meaty part of your calf. So if you were to reach back, you could find that spot kind of below your knee where it's nice and kind of meaty there. And you're just going to cross that shin into that meaty part. And I'm going to kind of squeeze my knees together. And then I'm going to walk my hands back towards my knees. My right knee is going to lift as that right shin bone presses down into the back of that left calf. Now, I'm not going to come up to more vertical here. This is pretty intense for my left calf. But all I'm going to do is just start to rock my shin bone against the back of that calf, so left and right. I'm just shifting my hips like I'm wagging my tail here. My right foot does lift off the ground as my right knee meets the floor. My toes come down to the ground on the left side. I'm just kind of tipping back and forth across that meaty part of that calf muscle. If you need to lessen that pressure, you can always take your hands out in front of you and do that same kind of movement. So kind of a self-massage that lets you choose how deep you want to go. And then go ahead, take both hands down to the mat, uncross that right shin from that left, and maybe just sit back, hips towards heels, and just kind of notice if there's any difference in the softness between the left and the right side. So for me, my left calf, where I was just pressing into, feels a lot less tense, a lot less painful. Take a nice breath. Maybe dip your ears left to right. And then go ahead and come forward. We're going to switch sides. So you're going to take that left shin bone and you're going to cross it right into that meaty part of your right calf. And you can kind of move it around if you like. If this is plenty for you and you just want to kind of work that calf with your shin in an all fours position, you can. If you'd like to go a little bit further, you can start to shift your hips back towards your heel and then just rock. So I'm just kind of wagging my tail. My left knee comes down, then my left toes come down, and I'm allowing gravity to do the work here. Using my shins to kind of move into that meaty part of my calf. Just letting it all kind of melt and move in. Really let that gravity take hold. And then once you've done a little bit of that kind of movement, go ahead and take your hands back out. You can uncross those legs. And once again, just slowly shift your hips back towards your heels. Come into what they call a seiza seat, which is essentially just a kneeling position, pelvis over your heels. Notice any softness, notice any sensation that's come up from especially the lower legs. Take a few breaths. And just notice what comes up as you sit, what comes up as you kind of let gravity take hold. And if you'd like to sort of start to rock your pelvis left to right on your heels, you can kind of do that. And then we're just going to come forward into all fours. Tuck your toes, lift your pelvis, press up and back. We're going to come into a nice downward facing dog here. Let the heels sink towards the earth. Press the ground down and away. Let your head shake no. Let your head shake yes. Take a couple of deep cleansing breaths here. Maybe start to shift your weight left and right, allowing each heel to drop towards the mat, drop towards the earth. Come up on your toes, let your heels drop. I'm just really relishing this downward dog today. It's like this feels really, really good in my body right now. And then from here, go ahead and lower back down to your knees. And we're going to come down onto our elbows here. So you can keep your hands separate. You can turn your palms towards the earth. Hands and elbows and shoulders should be in one continuous line. If that doesn't feel great, you can always interlace your fingers together at the center of your mat or just press the palms together. For me, I like the pressing palms together. I feel a little bit more stable. And all I'm going to start to do is move the heart forward over my palms and back. So a little bit of a more active sort of child's pose here. We're using some activation in the shoulders to open up and unwind any kind of curling forward that we've been doing. And we will shortly move into a little bit more of a back bend space so that we can start to really open up the shoulders and the chest. And just let your chest move forward and back, kind of flossing through the full circumference of the shoulder muscles, those tendons. If you'd like to get your head involved, maybe lifting the chin as you go back, maybe dragging the crown of the head along the mat as you come forward. So like the head is kind of trailing in the movement. And see if as you come forward, you can take a deep breath and expand through the back of the shoulder blades, rounding. And as you come back, see if you can let those shoulder blades sink in towards the rib cage, in towards the spine. And then come back to center. Keep those arms extended out. Let your hips sink towards your heels. Come into a sort of extended child's pose here. Feel the stretch through the armpits down to the rib cage. Maybe let the forehead drop towards the mat. And then go ahead and pressing down into the shins slowly, like you're trying to stack one vertebrae at a time. Drag your hands along the mat slowly, slowly, slowly. Let your head and your shoulders come up last. Come back up into that seated position, that seiza position. And you can take your time here. Let your shoulders unwind. Let the crown of your head move towards the sky. Take a deep breath and just notice. And then go ahead and shift your weight off to one side. We're going to take that blanket or that towel that you have. And what I'd like you to do is roll it into a long tube. So I'm just literally going to roll my towel right up until it's a nice long tube. And then I'm going to place it long ways on my mat. About, I'd say like 6 to 10 inches from the top of my mat. When you come down, you want to be able to place the back of your pelvis on the roll. Maybe your blanket or your towel might not be long enough to place your head, but you want to have enough space where your head can kind of drape off. So it's going to take a little finagling. Make sure that that strap or those yoga pants or that belt is somewhere close by so that when you come down to lie on your back, you can reach it. So we're going to turn around so that the base of that roll is right at the base of our pelvis. And I'm actually going to just tug that towards me and then lift my hips and come to just kind of sit on that blanket. And then from here, once I've kind of got a good spot, you want that towel or that blanket roll to be right at your midline, right at your spine. And you're just going to come down to elbows. See if you can make any adjustments that you might need. And then come all the way down to rest on your back. And here, you'll probably notice that my towel's a little short, so the back of my head is still hanging off. That's totally okay. If you need to make adjustments, if you need to get another towel or a blanket to prop your head up, feel free to go ahead and do that. But once you've come down onto that roll, you'll notice that the sides of your back are floating off the mat. You're supported completely by your spine. Bring your elbows into goalpost or cactus arms. And let your shoulder blades wrap down around that blanket or that towel. Allow your breath to fill your ribcage, to fill your belly. Allow everything to soften around that support. You may feel a bit of a release into, especially across the front of the belly, the front between the pubic bones and between the fronts of the hip bones here. Like I feel a very soft sensation here. Allow your breath to come in and out with whatever rhythm wants to happen in your body. And just take a few breaths here. Let gravity take hold. And once you've taken a few moments here, you can reach over, find that belt or strap or those yoga pants, and we're going to come back into that similar shape that we started with. So with your knees bent, your feet planted on the mat, that keeps you stable. You're going to take your hands down towards your pelvis with that strap right across your pelvis. And just see here if you can drag that strap down into your thighs, tugging your shoulders away from your ears, maybe imagining like you're pinching that blanket behind your shoulder blades, like you're trying to pinch it between the shoulder blades. And then see if you can drag your hands more towards the mat at the same time that you're pressing down into your thighs. So this is a really active move. See if you can do it without taking any tension into the back of your neck. And then from here, go ahead and release that tension. You're going to just start to move your arms up. Hands come up over your chest and then maybe reach up overhead so that the backs of your hands come to rest on the mat. And then when you're ready on your inhale, just go ahead and start to move those hands back over the chest and back down towards your hips. So you're essentially just moving your arms up and down, noticing kind of the massaging sensation you might get from that blanket between your shoulder blades, noticing if there's any places where you feel stuck or tight, and kind of just allowing gravity to do the work at the same time that you're actively hanging on to that strap or those yoga pants or that belt, whatever you've got. You can even do this with a little towel if that's all you have. That's totally okay. And you can change the width of your hands. So if you want to go a little narrower and see how that feels, if you want to go a little wider and see how that feels, just play with the spacing. Play with what you got. Like here, for me, when I draw my hands down towards my hips in a wider angle, I feel a sort of softening of the backs of my lower ribs, which is really quite nice. So just explore and feel what feels good in your body. We'll do 2 more of those. You can breathe however you like, whether you'd like to inhale or exhale on the raise or the lower. It's a really nice sort of non-structured format, which I always like. And if you find a place where you're kind of sticky and you want to give yourself a little massage, like I've found a nice spot with my hands up over my chest where I can kind of wiggle my spine on that blanket and it's like a nice massage. So I'm going to kind of do that. Just be organic with it. Be kind to your body. Be kind to what you might need right now. Take a couple of breaths. And then go ahead and place that strap off to the side. You can wrap it up. We are done with that for today's practice. And all I'd like you to do is go ahead and just roll off of your blanket, roll off to the side. Take a moment on whichever side you've chosen. I've chosen my right side, so I'm rolling away from you guys. And you're just going to notice the difference in the way that gravity affects your body here. And then slowly come back up. And we're going to actually use that blanket or towel for a little bit of a different shavasana. If you're in the middle of the room, find a place where you can either put your legs up against something, a couch, a chair, maybe the wall. I'm going to go with the wall since it's right here. And what we're going to do is just refold that towel or blanket up. And you're going to place it so that it's right up against the base of your wall or a bookshelf or whatever sort of prop you're using. If it's the base of a chair, we're going to do a little legs up the wall and kind of reverse a little bit of the tension that might be there for our shavasana today. So the best way, the trick here is to get your hip as close to that structure as possible before you go down to lie on your back. So I'm going to just make some adjustments here to my towel, my blanket, and I'm going to scooch my left hip as close as I can up to this wall. So it's like right up against it. And I'm going to actually move myself a little forward here so that I don't kick things. And then from here, all you're going to do is just start to lie back and swing your feet up the wall or up onto a couch, a chair. An office chair works really great for this. You can press your heels in and make any kind of adjustment to that support underneath your pelvis. And then if you're like me, if you're at a wall or a bookshelf, bookshelves work great. Um, you can just take your legs to or towards straight. You can interlace your hands behind your head and just start to let gravity do its work here. If your feet are in a chair, it's perfectly great. It's a good place to be. My pelvis is lifted off the floor here. This takes some of the extension out of the back of the legs so that you're not quite so sort of stretching into the hamstrings. If you're putting your feet up onto a couch or a chair, there won't be as much of a stretch, but that's totally okay. And we're just going to take a few breaths. Maybe close your eyes and just kind of let any kind of adjustments that you need to make happen. So if you need to move where your towel is, your blanket is, if you feel like you're sliding away from the wall, if you need to lift and lower your pelvis a few times, just find a place where you can settle in. And I'm keeping my hands behind my head, elbows splayed wide. And we're going to do a nice little vagal reset before we head into a legs up the wall or a supported shavasana. So once you've kind of gotten all your wiggles out, go ahead and just take your eyes over to the left side. So I'm staring up into the corner where my wall and my ceiling meet. And my nose is still pointed towards the ceiling, but I'm just holding my eyes at this very sort of extreme edge of my vision and waiting for any kind of sensation of wanting to swallow or sigh. Just letting everything settle in. And there was my sigh. And then go ahead, and once you've had some kind of shift, you can draw your eyes back towards the ceiling and just take a couple breaths here. And then take your eyes over to the right side. Same deal here. Keep your nose pointing towards the ceiling. Let your eyes go as far over to the right side as they will possibly go. And just observe for a breath, a swallow, a sigh, a yawn. Once you've noticed what's come in, you can go ahead and draw your eyes back towards the middle, back towards the ceiling. Maybe just close your eyes. If you'd like to take your hands out from behind your head, you're welcome to. You can place them on your body in whatever manner you'd like. You can take your palms face up away from your hips. You can come into cactus pose. Just find a place that feels kind of okay. And just allow your breath to settle, allow your system to just rest and fall into the support of the earth and the drop of gravity. Let your breath come in and move out with whatever rhythm it may need. There's no more holding, there's no more shifting. Just let it be. Notice if any sounds come into your awareness. Notice if any thoughts come into your awareness. And want to draw you out. For right now, just feel supported by the earth and softened by gravity. And if you'd like, you can slowly begin to consider coming down from whatever legs up the wall position you might be in, whether you're propped up on a wall or propped up on a chair or a couch, or letting your legs rest against a bookshelf. We're going to exit the same way we came in. You can bend your knees and maybe plant your feet on the wall or plant your feet on that bookshelf, or just let your knees kind of hug in towards your chest. And then when you're ready, you can just let those knees fall over to the left or right. I'm going to go towards the left. And maybe come into just a quick fetal position here. Allow yourself to rest on that side. And take a few breaths. And then gently, just slowly start to roll yourself over onto your belly if you like. Or if you're ready to come into a seated position, feel free to make your way back to your mat or back to whatever position feels nice as we close out the practice for this morning. So whatever shape you've chosen, whether you've chosen to keep your energy down on the ground and lying on your belly, or if you've chosen to find a nice seat, just welcome your body into this shape. For a moment, offer up just a little gratitude for everything your body has done this morning already. All of the thoughts, the movement, the breath, the connectedness. If you're seated, feel the contact of your legs with the earth. And once again, just feel your energy move down to merge with that earth, to meet the earth. Notice what that feels like. Go ahead and take your hands to heart center in front of your chest. Press the palms against one another and let your thumbs rest against your sternum. Feel the crown of your head lift towards the sky. And gently bow your head towards your heart. All of the love and light in me bows to and honors all of the love and light in each one of you. Namaste.